that's who that's the everybody that was in the waiting room right now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Lee Whiteside, the run the sftv.org, azsf.org websites, although they haven't been very active lately. I wrote about sci-fi TV and connotations for 25 years, trying to keep up with everything. Expanse. Dave?
Yeah, hello everybody, and welcome to our panel on the Expanse TV show and book series. My name is David Williams. I'm a research professor in the School of Earth and Space Exploration at Arizona State University. I am also the official contact for the United Federation of Phoenix, our Phoenix local Star Trek and general science fiction fan club. And we do have quite a few members who, in addition to being Star Trek fans, are also fans of The Expanse. Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Smith. I'm a chemistry professor, and I'm also in the United Federation of Phoenix. I've been in for about 12 years now and enjoy that. But yes, Dave is correct. A lot of us also love The Expanse. So I've watched The Expanse and really enjoyed it. I haven't read the books yet, though, but I've enjoyed what I've seen, and I've watched the after show as well for season 5.
I'll tell you the story of how I discovered The Expanse. Dr. Kim and I were at the 50th anniversary Star Trek convention in Las Vegas in 2016, and there was a panel of writers who worked on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Brannon Braga, Ronald D. Moore, who went on to create the new Battlestar Galactica, and Naren Shankar, who got his teeth basically writing on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Well, after their panel, I went up with my program book to chat with them, and I told them my story about how growing up watching the original Star Trek inspired me to become a planetary scientist, and that currently at that time I was working on NASA's Dawn mission, which was currently orbiting the dwarf planet Ceres in the asteroid belt. And Naren Shankar said, "Oh, well, in that case, you ought to watch my new series. It's called The Expanse. It aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. We've aired all of season 1. And a lot of it takes place on the Dwarf Planet series, and you can probably catch it through iTunes." So after that, we got back home from Las Vegas. I did exactly that. I went onto iTunes. I purchased the 10-episode season 1 of the show and started binge watching it. And basically, I've been hooked on The Expanse as a TV show ever since then. And I went back, and since then, I have read all 8 of the novels that have come out since then. So that's just I thought I'd share that anecdote about how I came to be associated with The Expanse.
Yeah, your audio is dropping out, Dave.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Unless it was dropping out on my end. Okay. Of course, Zoom is telling me my internet connection is unstable, so maybe it's that. Okay, yeah, well,
He came through fine on my end.
Okay, all right. Maybe my internet. I'm out in Goodyear now, so been relatively stable for the most part. Yeah, I came in to The Expanse through the books. I've known both Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham as writers, and their new science fiction space opera that came out 10 years ago now. And I'd already been reading the novels, and then they got announced that they had the TV series. So I look forward to that, and I've really enjoyed the way they've adapted the books. They have changed a few things, but since both Daniel and Ty Frank, who make up James A. Corey, are very involved with the TV series, the series has definitely stayed true to the books and has done the science and the drama very well. One of the panels I think after the first season at Gallifrey one Doctor Who convention in LA, that Naren was there, and I think Ty Frank and Phil Plait, the bad astronomer, was one of the guests. So they had a panel with the three of them, and it was actually kind of fun just watching them geek out about, the showing space as it really is instead of how it looks in Star Wars or something. They do really try and make it look real and try and keep it close to reality as they can.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I think that's one of the things that I liked about The Expanse is they're trying to portray space travel and life in space and on low gravity bodies like asteroids relatively truthfully. Matter of fact, a few years ago, we did a panel at Phoenix CoMoCon with some of my colleagues and students at ASU School of Earth and Space Exploration on the science of The Expanse. And I remember that was a good time just, geeking out and talking about that.
Yeah, I came to The Expanse because Dave mentioned it to me, but I had heard it wasn't a bright, sunny Star Trek future that was pictured. So I resisted watching The Expanse for a while because I thought it was going to be a real downer and dystopian. But I finally gave it a try. And after the first season, I was hooked. So that's kind of how I came to The Expanse.
Yeah, and just as it started out on the Sci-Fi Channel and ran for 3 seasons. Sci-Fi did not pick it up. After that, then Amazon picked it up for Amazon Prime. And currently Amazon has said that the new season 6, will be the last season on Amazon Prime. However, since there are 9 books and they've been doing roughly a book a season, the question is, will there be more? And there's been hints that they are looking into doing it through a different streaming company or doing some sort of adaptation to follow up. In the books, at the end of book 6, it kind of ties up majority of the storylines, and book 7 picks up 30 years later. So that obviously is a gap that they could either pick it up right away or change the TV adaptation so it's not quite that long in the future for them.
Yeah, I met when Kim and I were at the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas about 2.5 weeks ago, and I made a point of meeting Sheree Agdashlu, who plays Christian Avasarala. She was the only Expanse actor who was there, and the reason why, of course, she also played Commodore Paris in charge of Starbase Yorktown in the 2016 movie Star Trek Beyond. So, but anyway, I told her about, how much I enjoyed the show and looking forward to season 6 and wishing that they could find a way to do the last 3 books. And she sort of gave me an aside and said, well, maybe we'll do a movie or something like that. So there's various ways that they might execute that. I don't think a 2 or 2.5 hour movie would do justice to through the last 3 novels of the series. I mean, obviously we haven't read the last one yet because it's not coming out till November. But having read books 7 and 8, there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens in there.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, and just, for those of the last book is called Leviathan Falls, and it will be out in November. Currently order through, I think, Barnes & Noble, a signed copy of it. A couple of other places where you may be able to get signed copies. And they're also releasing a 10th anniversary edition of Leviathan Wakes, with a new cover that actually based on some fan art that actually looks pretty cool. One thing, I have put together a web page with some various links that I'll post the direct link on that into the chat. We'll also post it on the Promote Yourself page on the Discord. That has some links to some other things. The other thing that happened between season 4 and 5, they put out a comic that's basically the event, focuses on Bobby on Mars and her investigations that are already underway when the season 5 opens up, and some of her workings with Christian Avrasala, which I but it's an interesting thing. It came out in a 4-issue comic series and is now available as a graphic novel.
Yeah, and posted a comment in the chat window. I read the books after having watched the first 5 seasons of the show. I was pleasantly surprised at how faithful the show was to the books. Most of the addition and changes made sense in terms of adapting to television. Yeah, I would agree completely with that. I watched the TV show first, and then I went back and read the books. And of course, there's a lot more characters, a lot more details in the books there, but you can't do that if you're just limited to a 10 episode TV season.
Right.
So I really enjoyed the way they adapted them, and it's a bit confusing. Lee said that it's basically a book a season, and it was that way initially, but Leviathan Wakes, the first book, it was basically 10 episode season 1 and about halfway into season 2, and then Caliban's War, the second book, basically is the rest of season 2 and the first half of season 3, and then they compress Abaddon's Gate, the third book, down into the last half of season 3, and then after that, then it's basically a book a season. So see, a book 4 is season 4, book 5 is season 5, and book 6 is season 6 is coming.
So someone made a comment about how they enjoyed the character build, and that made me wonder, what is everyone's favorite character? You can put it in the chat if you want. I think my favorite character is Naomi Nagata, because she is just so strong. She's a fighter. She's a survivor. I've enjoyed watching her character grow. I thought season 5, watching her through season 5 was very interesting. Yes, Drummer as well. I really enjoyed Drummer also. But I guess if I had to pick one, probably Naomi. So that's my favorite character. I really like Holden also, but Naomi speaks to me.
Yeah, I sort of like Holden. He's the James Kirk character, not so much in the, well, he does have his share of action, but he's always the one that's saying, no, it's not good to be factionalized this way. He says, if we factionalize, we all lose there. He's always trying to bring groups together, find a way to work together to face the problem of whoever the adversary is. And I think that it affects his crew. And there's the loyal crew that came from the Canterbury when it was destroyed, but then they've added in, with Bobby Draper and others along the way. Prask, when they were on Ganymede. The other thing that I really like, I'm a planetary geologist. I study the planets and moons of the solar system and asteroids, and I get a kick out of when they actually visit someplace that I've actually studied. I worked on the Galileo mission, so I've seen all of the images of the Galilean satellites, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, and I've studied Ceres on the Dawn mission, asteroid Vesta they named. So all of these places I'm familiar, and of course Mars, having worked on a Mars mission for the last 15, 16 years. So it's great fun when they actually go visit these places for me.
Okay, yeah, I think mine's probably Bobby. Like how they've adapted her for the TV series, and the actress they've got playing her really has a strong presence and really brings the character forward a lot. Yep. A lot of the others I like, but I think that's probably my favorite one, is how she pretty much leaped from the page to the TV show.
Yeah, Drummer's mentioned a couple of times in the chat, and Miller's brought up. Miller was definitely a very interesting character early on. And Drummer and Ashford is mentioned as well. Those are all good characters.
Yeah, what's interesting with Drummer is she's really kind of a combination of multiple characters from the books, but I think the character in the TV series really does work, and it'll be interesting to see how she plays into the final season.
Yeah, I see the names that of the folks there, and I also mentioned Amos. Amos seems to be a fan favorite. They nicknamed him Murder Snuggles for some reason. I think, women find him attractive, and he'll murder you, but he's also very loyal to the people that he's on his crew. And I think he will under the right circumstances, and certainly Holden's had a major influence on him.
Yeah.
And instead of just being a thug with a past, there he when the time comes to help people in need, Amos is usually there.
Well, look what he did in season 5 with Clarissa. So I think we got to see another side of him in season 5 as he's taken on the role of protecting and saving Clarissa.
Yeah, indeed.
So, yeah, Amos is awesome. I agree.
And speaking of Amos, one of the things I wanted to discuss is for those that the actor who plays him, Wes Chatham, and Ty Frank, for season 5, they started doing a Expanse after show, which was a lot of fun. They had a lot of the cast and behind the scenes people, and one episode with Daniel Abraham, they really delved into the whole history of how the novel series came together and all that. And yes, Ty and that guy. So that they have continued to do a regular podcast that's up on YouTube, and the page I shared has a link to each episode of the original after show, which is kind of hard to find through the Amazon website currently. And the Guy and That Guy video podcast pretty much started out working their way through the entire Expanse TV series. They're up to about 30 episodes now, and I think are most of the way through season 2, going over the episodes.
Yeah, I watched the Ty and That Guy podcast for season 5 when they were bringing the actors in to talk about each episode, and that was good. I haven't had time to go back and watch the podcast from the beginning. Maybe someday. But I'm glad that they decided to do that. That seems to be a thing. Certainly Star Trek has done that. Whenever there's a new live action show, they'll do those shows either on podcast or an after show. So that's something. I don't know when those things started, but that seems to be something that's popular among some people.
Yeah. So the name of the podcast is Ty and That Guy. I know season 5. I watched it on YouTube.
Right. Yeah. They're all up on YouTube, and the blog page that I shared has links to the main page.
Yeah, and they were about 25 to 30 minutes long, so not real long, but they discussed each episode.
Well, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, here's a link to the main page for the Ty and That Guy website. Yeah, and as Chris mentioned, Alex was killed off at the end of season 5 in part because the actor had some bad behavior.
Yeah.
Cass Anbar.
Right.
Cass Anbar. Yeah.
Which is sad.
I would have made a different choice. I would have just recast it. You could have had, an explosion on the ship that burned his face, and then, you brought in another actor just because I've seen that character plays a significant role in the last 3 books. That would have been my choice. But I guess that the creators of the show had a good reason that they just wanted to cut him loose. So.
Yeah, one rumor that one of the characters that'll be in season 6 that isn't really involved much in the books would be Prax, although I haven't really seen any hard evidence of that. So far they've really not given us much info about season 6. If anything, I think we might see a panel in association with New York Comic Con in October, or possibly with, San Diego Comic Con that's having a December version.
Yeah, I would expect the new season to start in December. I don't know that what they really need on that show is a pilot as good as the Alex character was, and
Right.
the guy that they had there, Bull, he's a very anti-Belter, so he's not a sympathetic character. So I don't know if they could. I just don't see him taking the place in that role there. I thought that maybe Alex's son on Mars is a teenager. Elapsed time they could make him be a wannabe pilot like his dad, and he could take his place there. But there's not really enough backstory on him that would make that acceptable to fans, I suppose. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing on that with that pilot role that the Rossi needs.
Yeah, I think it's a shame they had to write out Alex, because I really enjoyed the character, like Chris said. It was a good character. I enjoyed him, and so it's a shame that he's gone. Recasting might have been a good idea, but I'm sure they have their reasons for what they did.
Somewhat disappointing. I had met Cass Anvar a couple of times in person, and obviously, since I'm a middle-aged white guy, I didn't have any problems with him, but
Yeah.
he did not act appropriately especially with women. So
Yeah. And wrote a question in there. I can't find the short story Drive anywhere. Can anyone point me in the right direction? I think that particular one is only located on the Sci-Fi Channel website for The Expanse under additional features. I think that's where I saw it. And it's not available as a downloadable PDF, but it is located there. So you sort of have to go to that web page, and it'll pop up with the first page. Then you have to hit an arrow, and it'll go to the next page for however long it was. But that's where that particular short story is on the Sci-Fi Channel webpage for The Expanse.
So Dave,
Mm-hmm.
you're rocking back and forth again.
Yeah, I know. I'll try and stop.
Oh, thank you.
yeah, and to add, the Drive short story will be, since that was primarily, it was originally in a anthology, from about 10 years ago. It will be included in the short story collection that is coming out in March, that will have all of the Expanse novellas, including a new one that is supposed to be a coda to the series. The only other, there are print copies of Drive that were handed out as a promotion before the series started on Sci-Fi. That were freebies. I still have a couple extra of those. So.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware that it's not the Expanse material on the Sci-Fi website anymore. It's been a long time since I looked it up. So, but all of the other short stories are available. I just go to the iBooks on my iPad and order them that way. And that's, matter of fact, I don't have a hard copy of any of their books. I have them all as ebooks on my iPad. Okay, the links to Drive are broken. Okay, well, if you just check, then that's more recent information.
Yeah. Double check.
So I wonder what people think about the seasons. Have they been building this whole time, or did one of the earlier seasons your favorite? I know for me, season 1 is not my favorite season, but I stuck with it. And I think maybe season 2 and 3 were my favorite. I didn't really care for 4 as much, and then 5 was good again. So those were my favorites. And I don't know if everyone's seen all 5 seasons, but I thought they took a little back step with 4. I really enjoyed 2, 3, and 5, however.
Yeah, season 4 was totally different. It was mostly based on Illis, that planet. So it was more like an old Western. Just they didn't have cowboy hats and horses. It was all planet based, which was just a big difference in what they had done before. So if you like to see something a little bit different, then it was good. But I tend to hear from people that they weren't as thrilled about season 4 compared to the other ones. I think the proto-molecule, the proto-molecule hybrid soldiers of Caliban's war, and then the war with Mars in seasons 2 and 3 were probably the best. of those older seasons, but I haven't heard what people think about season 5 too much, which is the war that's instigated among the three powers and Marco Inaros making a deal with some ex-Martian military to weaken the Mars government and Earth, and hitting it with those iron asteroids and causing mayhem there. That was very bold.
Yeah, 5 was interesting because everyone was off on their own. The Rocinante crew wasn't together for the first time. And so we had all these
Right.
separate storylines going on. And you kept wanting to know, how are they going to get back together? Are they going to get back together? How is it going to work? And I think at the end, yeah, it all came together. So I think season 5 was a really nice package. Bill, I think you'll enjoy it. If you thought 4 was a bit boring, 5 is back up to par. So I think you should watch it. It's really good.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Yeah, thanks for the link, Lee.
Yeah, that was in that one anthology back then, and the only other print edition, and since it is a short story, where most of the others are novella length, they never made it available since it was available to read on the sci-fi website at one point.
Chris makes an interesting comment here. The thing that impressed me the most about the show was how rich the Expanse universe was. There was a good interview on Planetary Radio with the authors and their involvement with the show. And yeah, that's one of the things that, as I said, it interests me as a planetary scientist. I'm familiar with all these objects in the solar system, and the writers have really used the solar system. We have Earth and we have the moon with the lunar colony. We have Mars, which is developed. They've used the Martian moons Phobos and Deimos. They've used the near-Earth asteroid Eros as a major plot driver. We've been to Venus. We've been to a whole bunch of different asteroids in the main asteroid belt. They've mentioned Vesta. They've mentioned Ceres. They've mentioned Pallas. Those are mostly the largest ones. And then when we go out to the outer solar system, we've been to Ganymede, the breadbasket of the outer planets. We've been to Jupiter's volcanic moon Io. The ring gate is at the orbit of the planet Uranus around the solar system. So, we've been all over the solar system there, and I think it's been quite nice.
Yeah, I like Anne's comment. She says she likes the changes made to the characters of Drummer and Ashford. I didn't read the book, so I don't know, but I love the characters Drummer and Ashford and their development. I agree that Cara G and David Stratham's performances were stellar, and Ashford's death scene took my breath away. I didn't see that coming. So I didn't see Ashford getting killed off. So that was a shocker for me. And yeah, the cinematography for that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I thought they
Yeah.
also did a really good job with Naomi's escape
Right.
sequence from the ship
Right.
in season 5. Some of that cinematography was excellent. Very well done.
Yeah, and the whole, or Tipper's just acting in that whole part of the storyline where she was pretty much by herself and not really talking for most of it.
And that's a
Right.
challenge for an
Yeah,
actor.
yeah, definitely a challenge.
To be alone on a set, and with nothing from the outside, you just have to interact with the set pieces there to bring out the emotion. So I think that's a very big challenge, and I think season 5 is definitely Naomi's season to shine in that character, and Dominic Tipper did a really good job about that.
Yeah, she talked about that in the Ty and That Guy when they interviewed her, about how difficult her performance was at the last part of season 5, how hard it was for her, and that she was near having to act, brought her near to tears because it was such an intense feeling of isolation and acting on the set. It was really moving for her to play that part. So that was a very interesting part of Ty and That Guy podcast.
Yeah, and you have to remember when these actors are acting, at least up until more recently, it's been against a green screen. So you have your ship, your set piece, but then when you're looking out a window, all you see is a green screen with a pole with an X on it which is the direction the actor is supposed to look for what they're filming. And they really have to use their imagination to try and keep stay in character and act properly for whatever the goal of the scene is. And, that's the way it's been for so long. It's just now more recently that they're creating things like these AR walls. Both The Mandalorian and Star Trek Discovery Season 4 have had them in place. And when you have the actual background scene projected onto these AR walls, that gives the actors a lot more information on which to base their reaction. So this is a wonderful improvement in technology for making television shows that just didn't exist, prior to the pandemic, actually, as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that wall works, but I would love to see it in action. Like watch how they film with it.
Yeah, I think The Mandalorian, which we watched, is the only example right now that we've seen of that, or at least ourselves. But yeah, that's what they used for at least season 2 of that, I think, if not season 1.
Right. Well, who's everyone's favorite bad guy? As I assume for a lot of people, it's Marco Inaris. He's a pretty good villain on the show, but also Murtry. I really didn't like that guy. That was from season 4 on the planet. Murtry to me is the worst bad guy. Yeah, I didn't associate any feelings with him at all. He drove me nuts, and yeah. But
well, with me,
I hated Murtry. Yeah, almost more than Marcos, which is saying something.
Yeah.
Those two are definitely the most. I have more antipathy toward them as bad guys. In season 1, it was Jules Pierre Mao, I think, who was running the company that was dealing that, and the assistant secretary general. What was his name? Counterpoint with Avasarala. I can't think of his name at the moment. If anybody can think of it, you can type in the chat. So you had the secretary general, who we didn't really see until the war, and then we had the assistant, and then Christian Avasarala was like the third in command there through seasons 1 through 1, 2, and 3-ish, something like that. And then when he's the one who actually assassinated the Martian defense minister and, basically started the war with Mars, because he thought, well, let's take advantage of our 5-to-1 advantage over Mars. He wanted to wipe them out. And then when Admiral Souther, when he resigned and the other admiral took over, he was also in league with them, bad guy. So they've had some good villains in this show, I'd say.
Yeah, we had someone who liked Murtry. One thing they liked about Murtry is you could see how he thought he was right, even when he failed. But yeah, he did believe that he was right. And I think a lot of villains believe they're right. They don't believe they're villains. They think they're in the right. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bern Gorman, the actor who played the part, definitely did a good job with doing that. A lot of us know him from Torchwood, as well as some other things that he's been in.
Yeah, that's what helps make the show. I mean, the good guys can't really shine unless you have good bad guys in that. And so, I don't think I really have a lot of complaints, if any, about the actors and the acting that we've seen through these current 5 seasons of The Expanse. I mean, I think a lot of them are, outside the leads, I think a lot of them are Canadian actors, since the show is shot in Canada. Because I've seen some of those Canadian actors on The Expanse also appear on Star Trek Discovery.
Right.
So they're really getting a chance to shine in shows now that a lot of shows are being produced in Canada.
Where's Wes Chatham from? Is he from Canada or is he from here? Who plays Amos?
Yeah, I thought he was American. I mean, I don't know much about him because we saw him in the Hunger Games. He was in one of those earlier Hunger Games movies. But he is a former military officer. He was in the military before he switched to acting. And so, he has a good feel for handling all those weapons because he actually did it, before.
Yeah, he's American and is in the U.S. Navy, according to his Wikipedia page.
Mhm.
Wow. All right, for those of you looking at the chat, we got a post about the virtual sets for The Mandalorian, the LED walls. There's a YouTube video if you want to follow that link at a later date. That might be very interesting in the chat.
Well, one of the interesting things, that counterpoints this with Star Trek, because, a lot of us are Star Trek fans, and it's that optimistic vision of the future where everybody has learned to work together and solve the problems of hunger and war and everything. And that's the Star Trek future. This show is the exact opposite. It shows what happens when you have unrestricted capitalism and race hatred and looking down on people of different economies. And you have the sects, you have the humans, the Martians, and the Belters. And even within the Belters, you have all of the individual groups there, basically based on whatever asteroid that they happen to be living on. And all that strife and negativity, it just shows you, what that kind of a future would look like. And, it certainly enables people with more of a positive system of values. And I put Holden sort of in this, because as I said before, he's always trying to do the right thing for humanity as opposed to any particular group. But he recognizes the foibles of Earth because he's an Earther and he was discharged from the Earth military. And it was good that the crew of the Rocinante, the survivors of the Canterbury, you have two Earthers, a Martian, and a Belter, basically. And and as they bring in more crew members from time to time, it gives them this different perspective, and I think that enables understanding. And you can't eliminate problems, and you can't change if you don't have understanding.
Yeah, the Belters are interesting because at first I didn't feel a lot of sympathy towards them. And then as the seasons went on and we saw some of the Belters grow and change, and we saw some different Belters, they became a more sympathetic group overall. But it's not one or the other. It's not like they're good, they're bad. It's a mixed bag, kind of like Earthers. It's a mixed bag. So it's a very complex society that they're showing, which again is not like Star Trek. So it's very interesting. I hope we do better in our future than this. But it makes for good entertainment, that's for sure.
Yep. Aaron Wright was the name I was trying to remember. The Assistant Secretary General, Aaron Wright. And he's the one that sparred with Christian Avasarala and then ultimately betrayed her to Jules Pierre Mao so that he could wipe her out. But she, thanks to Bobby Draper and her bodyguard, Kotyar, I guess was his name, managed to save the day. And that was one of my favorite times, was the episodes where Christian and Bobby were on the Rocinante when they came to their rescue, and they were trying to figure out what to do to stop the hybrids and Jules Pierre Mao. And that's of course when they ended up going to my favorite place in the solar system, Jupiter's moon Io. I know that place.
Yeah, I think that's kind of when the Avasarala's character began to turn from maybe not being so sure about her character to being more sympathetic. It was once she was on the Rocinante and we got to see a little bit more of her character.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree with Chris that she became more sympathetic as the show progressed. And I think that era when she was on the Rocinante and been rescued was kind of a turning point for me, at least, in viewing her character.
Yep, I agree completely. In the first two seasons, Earth always comes first was her attitude there, and she'd do whatever was required to protect it. But then as she became more sympathetic and learned more, that's when she changed. And so she, by the time we see her in season 5, she and Holden are, they're both trying to do whatever they can for the benefit of the whole solar system.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anne's comment I see there. The Expanse is one of the few sci-fi series where all the characters are human. The protomolecule is the only alien species. Yeah, that was another good way that was used. The protomolecule was discovered on Phoebe, which is the outermost moon of the planet Saturn, and that particular moon orbits in a retrograde. It orbits in the opposite direction from all the other Saturn moons. And so the scientific theory about the real moon Phoebe is that it's a captured Kuiper belt object, something from the very edges of the solar system. And so the writers took that and, gave it the possibility, well, maybe it came from elsewhere in the galaxy and was captured by Saturn, and that's why it has that orbit. But that is sort of the instigator. But yeah, you're right. This is something where humans are their own worst enemy. And, the protomolecule is just this thing, this biological computer program that reprograms whatever it touches, and yeah, it causes the mayhem. But it doesn't do it with malice. It just does it because of its programming.
Yeah, and in the books, we see what happened when the Martians that have gone through the gates, when they turn back up, and their leader is had some experimentation going on.
Yep.
I don't know if we're going to see any of that in season 6. If not, then that would be possible fodder for a continuation, however it happens.
Yeah, and Chris's point is correct there. The other alien species made its appearance in the final episode of season 5. Yeah, the aliens who destroyed the protomolecule builders that appear as these like things of fire there. Yeah, that's the only other alien species that we've encountered there. And Holden and LV Okaye, who was on Illis there, they're really the only two that have had direct contact with those and survived. And it's because of that contact that they become the concern about that becomes greater in the later books of the series. What other points do we discuss?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could talk a little bit about when we saw Shohreh at the convention. She had an interview on stage, and it was very interesting. She actually came from the Middle East and escaped when she was it mid-20s when she escaped the country?
Yeah, she is an Iranian by birth, and she escaped Iran right about the time that the fall of the Shah and the Ayatollah took over, and she recognized, she thought that if she wanted to have a good life, she needed to get away from the repression that was instituted at that time. So she made her way out of the country and through, I don't know, was it Turkey or something like that, to finally end up in London, and eventually, did a variety of jobs and before becoming an actress. But yeah, the nature of her departure, she told the story at our convention a few weeks ago, and yeah, it was a very moving story about how she was able to escape that and do all the acting that she's done in various shows. So
yeah, she's been a lot more than I realized. The list was pretty extensive, and some of the parts, how she got them, were very exciting. And you couldn't help but cheer for her after hearing her story of what all she's accomplished now. It's a great story. So Anne in the chat said she didn't like how Miller and Julie Mao's character arcs ended in the books. So I don't know the books. I know on the show they ended in, I guess, Venus, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went in the books.
yeah, well,
Aside from Miller's reappearance.
Right.
yeah.
Proto Miller.
Proto Miller.
Well, who knows? Maybe their consciousness exists through some surviving filaments of the protomolecule. Maybe they're in the ring gate, the Sol gate, as it's called, because our star's name is Sol. But yeah, maybe they exist in some way like that. And seeing Miller reappear to Holden, thanks to that leftover protomolecule on board the Rocinante, that I thought that was interesting. But And of course, the actor Thomas Jane. Since then, he's actually gone on to direct episodes of The Expanse. I think he directed at least one episode in season 5. So, yeah. Proto Miller didn't want to talk about Julie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I think I'm back now. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I had my internet kind of on me for a minute. No, I think some of that, with the way that ran, was how the first book especially was pretty much based on the role playing game that they developed originally. Essentially, this all started with them playing a role playing game, which is one reason why the Doctor doesn't last beyond the episode 5 or 4.
Yeah, that was Shed was his name. Yeah, he
Yes.
died. When that giant bullet went right through the Martian battleship. There, yeah, that was a shock
Yeah.
to all of them when that happened. But that's interesting. All of this started as a role playing game, and I just find that interesting that from the game they wrote the backstories of the characters, and then that led them to write the novel, and then the novel went to make the TV show. That just seems like a very interesting way to do it.
Yeah. The original, and when they were playing the game, the guy, whoever was playing the character of Shed, had to drop out, so they killed him off, and that stuck through the books. And
Yeah,
that really was kind of a surprise, for reading the books, and especially for the TV series. That all the sci-fi shows tend to have a doctor, and then there's a doctor character. Oh,
There's
Yeah.
not.
there's not. Yeah,
thank God for the auto docs they have on
Yeah.
Rocinante. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm wearing a Rocinante T-shirt, and I have behind me over here. This is a model of the Rocinante. This was from a fan Kickstarter. It was either Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I can never remember which one because I've contributed to multiple of those things over the years. But there wasn't a lot of Expanse merchandise that was going on, so fans sort of got together and they did this Kickstarter and they put in these ideas. They wanted to have a good model of the Rocinante, but they wanted to create other stuff. And I ended up contributing to that. And then I think, Kim, when was that delivered? Was it in the summer of 2020, right after the pandemic started, that I got this big package and we opened it and they had that in there, but they had all that other stuff, the posters and the metal cards and the stickers and patches and just a whole bunch of stuff from that. So if we ever do have an Expanse focused CoKoCon or something here in the Phoenix area, we've definitely got the materials to decorate the con suite. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it was a Kickstarter, and I think we opened that box up in the fall. And you're right, I like the metal plaques and like the plaque of dedication for the Rocinante. Those were my favorite things in the box of goodies from the Kickstarter. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and Amazon does have a number of Expanse related T-shirts and caps. I've got a Rocinante cap. Well, as Rocinante is my personalized license plate. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it'd be really fun to get a writer from the Expanse out here next year to CoKoCon as a guest.
Or when we're in person again, whenever that is. Absolutely.
Hopefully next year.
I would target Naren Shankar, the executive producer and head of the writing staff, for that, because he also has a Star Trek connection because he wrote, started writing on Star Trek: The Next Generation. So that way you can cover 2 genres with one guest, and writers are not nearly as expensive as actors. So
yeah. I think Naren's path to the Expanse is kind of interesting. I don't know if you talked about that at any of the panels you saw, but after Star Trek, he ended up working on things like CSI and all that, and came back to sci-fi when they approached him, see if he'd be interested in being involved with the Expanse. He initially told them no, but they said, prodded him, and he read the books and then talked with Kai and Daniel and decided, oh, this is good. We can make a real good show with this. And he has.
And he has. So I'm glad they talked him into it. Yeah.
I like this comment. One thing I liked about the planetary radio interview is the author said Show Ray, which is Vasarala, was reticent to swear, but as the show progressed, she became more comfortable with swearing on and off set.
Yeah.
I can see that now after seeing her on stage.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Yeah. She of course didn't curse at all at the panel there, but
Oh no.
maybe people were expecting her to, just because Christian Avasarala is, puts a swear word in practically every sentence there.
No, that would be Dominic Keating from Enterprise, who curses when he's at a panel in person. Oh my goodness, that boy has a foul mouth.
Well, I think it's after they've been drinking some, which is an easy thing to do when you're in Vegas, to have a few drinks before you do your panel. Not that I've ever done that. My panel's usually too early in the morning for that. So.
Yeah, your science panels are always first one of the day almost.
For Bill, who said he wanted a MCRN coffee mug, they do have them on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
Part of their licensed Expanse stuff.
Yeah, Avasarala is so prim and proper, but swore like a sailor. Yeah, exactly. Also, her outfits. I think she is.
Oh yeah.
They have a really great costume designer there. In particular, Avasarala's costumes are so elegant. A lot of people have commented. I see online. There's of course a Facebook page for the Expanse fandom there, and that's the thing that I see quite frequently is commentary about the costuming that they have, and her costumes in particular.
Yeah, they're the best, definitely. I mean, I can remember watching episodes with you, Dave, and saying, "Oh, I love what she's wearing. I love her cape or her pants or her shirt or her jewelry, the big jewelry she wears." You're right. Whoever's doing her outfits is doing a great job. Yep. Yeah, everything about the show is high quality. I agree. Yeah, and she carries it well. Yes.
Yeah, that character acts like somebody who grew up as part of the aristocracy on Earth and who was trained to be a political, official her whole life and understands the ins and outs. And so this is the type of a person who knows everybody in politics, by their friend or foe, and knows how to do what's necessary to get what needs to be done, and that becomes very very clear during the first two seasons of the show.
So is Anderson Dawes still out there?
Think so?
That character?
The character is the governor of Ceres after they threw off the humans, and I think it's in book 6 that that character actually reappears in the book. Now, I don't know. The actor is actually filming another TV show that's on the air, so I don't know whether that character will be included in season 6. Lee, do you have any insight?
No, don't really. As I said, there's not been a whole lot of details come out yet on season 6, but basically in season 6, the Marco does take over Medina Station. So a lot of the action takes place around there, as well as on all the various ships. And depending on whether they bring the Martian side of the ones who have gone past the gates into it in season 6.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, so I don't know where this is going, but I feel like Drummer and Philip are going to play important roles if I had to guess. So again, I haven't read the book, so just based on the show, I will be interested to see what they do with Philip and Drummer. Yeah.
Well, the Martians military folks rallied under Winston Duarte, an admiral in the Martian Navy, and they left and they went through one of the gates to a planet called Laconia. And at the time of what we've seen so far, we don't know much about it except that he's the leader. And then the final scene there was, some Martian ships were going through a gate, but then the proto-molecule builders, killers, the fire people, let's call them, they wiped out, the other admiral, Salvatore, and his assistant, who was, dealing with Alex on Mars. They end up getting killed and their ship destroyed by those forces there. But if I remember correctly, like the last scene, you see this proto-molecule starship or platform being built or assembling in orbit around Laconia there, and that's a foreshadowing of what's going to happen in book 7, if in some way we ever get there. So I'm not going to provide any more details. It's just that character Duarte and that whole group of Martians that gave military supplies to Marco Inaros and enabled the Belters to become a military power and start that war, they're off doing their thing somewhere else.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to watch the last 2 episodes of season 5 before 6 comes out, because so much happened in those last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I'll need to refresh myself again. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we said they have not yet announced when it will be. It's possibly in December, but maybe depending on how COVID has affected their post-production. They have filmed everything, but it may not be ready till early next year.
Lee, when they do a show like that, do they have to wait until the final episode of the season is through post-production before they start airing the first one? Or can they start airing the first one with the assumption that they'll get the last episode or 2 wrapped up in the 10 weeks so that it's ready to go to get to the end?
I think since they, unlike Netflix, which likes to dump everything all at once, that since they are doing it weekly, they might show like 2 episodes on the first week. But I think they don't have to have everything finished. But on how Amazon, it's really up to Amazon when they want to make it available. So depending on when they're releasing other shows, and since this is theoretically the last season with Amazon, they may decide to hold it back for a bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard that it's not really based on ratings and viewership, and since they've said they aren't going to make any more, it's really pretty much up in the hands of Amazon. Now, if say HBO Max or somebody steps in and says we're going to make the rest of the series and get production going and stuff, then Amazon might feel they need to get it out there before things start happening with the new vendor.
Yeah, somebody told me that the way that they do this is that the streaming channels will produce maybe 3 seasons of it, but they're not interested in really long things, a long running series there. It's like it no longer becomes cost effective. So that's why Amazon's only doing 3. So it's very different thinking than what I'm used to.
We are going to have to wrap this up in 1 minute because I have to open another Zoom session.
Okay. Well, I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about, Lee.
Yeah. Ken, here, I will post the link for the blog page I put up.
And again, you can go stop in the promote yourself and put any of the stuff up. And I knew you did some of that earlier too.
Right.
Yeah, I put mine up there in the promote page thing on Discord the day or so ago.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a great discussion. Thanks for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow morning for a talk on NASA's Dragonfly mission to Titan. Until then, everybody have a good night.
Thank you
thank
so much. It was an awesome talk. Loved it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.